La Junta Escolar de Denver ha votado a favor de extender por 2 años más el contrato del superintendente Alex Marrero, asegurando su permanencia al frente del distrito escolar hasta el 2028. La decisión también incluye nuevas cláusulas que dificultan su posible destitución. La presidenta de la Junta, Carrie Olson, defendió la renovación, diciendo lo siguiente: muchas de las cosas que está haciendo el superintendente es lo que queremos para nuestros hijos. La votación se llevó a cabo tras una reunión cargada de opiniones encontradas. Durante los comentarios públicos, padres, maestros y miembros de la comunidad expresaron tanto apoyo como preocupaciones sobre el liderazgo de Marrero y el proceso de renovación de su contrato. ¿Qué dicen los ciudadanos sobre esta decisión y qué implica este nuevo contrato para el futuro de las escuelas públicas de Denver? Te lo contamos a continuación.
To the public comment portion of our meeting, and I appreciate your patience, all of you, as you realize we're running late. At the beginning of the meeting, we had some technological difficulties, so we had to wait till that was fixed to start our meeting. The public comment session for this agenda item is related to policy review and superintendent contract. And open public comment. Each topic is limited to 15 speakers or 30 minutes per item. All other comments are unrestricted or limited to 15 speakers or 30 minutes. If you have any information you want to bring to the attention of the board, please send your comments to the board office at board@dpsk12.net. We welcome your comments, which are important to us. Please note that we will not be entering into dialogue at this time. The purpose of this agenda item is for you, the public, to inform us, the Board of Education, about your views. We will consider your input when making decisions. If you raise a concern that requires follow-up, someone from DPS or board member will contact you. Vice President De La Rosa is keeping track of your comments and requests to ensure that somebody follows up. So you'll see her typing. All public comments are limited to 2 minutes. I will call you up in small groups to approach the podium, starting with those in person for each topic and then shifting to the virtual option. Please state your full name and read the title of your remarks when you are called upon to deliver your comments. No substitute speakers are allowed, and you are not allowed to read the comments on behalf of others. Only the individuals who signed up to speak may address the board. There is a limit of speakers allowed for each topic. At the 2-minute mark, a chime will ring and alert the speaker that they have 5 seconds to wrap up their comments. Then the next speaker will come to the podium. The board does not allow defamatory public comment, including false statements purporting to be true, which may cause a person reputational damage or other harm. The board will not allow threats of any kind, including messages meant to frighten or intimidate a person into believing they will be harmed or inviting others to do such harm. Please remember that young students may be present and listening. Refrain from using language that would be inappropriate for young students. And interpreters are available for those who have requested it in advance. Y ahora en español.
Hello, esteemed board. My name is Jack Baker, and I'm currently a sophomore at Thomas Jefferson High School. I'm currently part of the SHIFT Fellowship. SHIFT's largest impact on my life is the improvement it's had on my own mental health. Suicide rates have increased by 30% since the early 2000s just in Colorado. In the year 2021, over 1,370 people lost their own battle with their own mental health. 1,372 men. We're currently living in an age where mental health is always declining. Social media, self-image, and high school culture has created an environment where more people feel negatively about themselves, including myself. If some of these people, especially young people, had access to the same supports I have now, many lives could have been saved. SHIFT not only has helped me in the moment by making me feel welcomed and providing a safe space, but additionally, SHIFT has improved my ability to handle difficult situations. Before I was part of the SHIFT program, I would spend over 8 hours a day. Around half the time I would be awake on my phone, scrolling TikTok, messaging people, and using other distractions. SHIFT encouraged me to change my perspective and motivated me to make improvement. Now my average screen time is always below 3 hours, and my time on distracting apps like Instagram and TikTok are limited to under an hour daily. This significantly improved my own mental health and has given me my time back. While I've made improvements for my own mental health, others are not as fortunate to have this program. The increased investment of youth in out-of-school programs that influence youth are not only cornerstones for our communities, but for our youth's mental health. Every student deserves opportunities to be in a program like SHIFT. Your investment today ends statistics. Mental health matters, and happy Mental Health Month.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Mai Travi, and I am a 16-year-old girl who is in her sophomore year at Thomas Jefferson High School. The SHIFT program has truly made a powerful impact on my life. It's more than just an extracurricular activity. It's a place where students like me can focus on planning for the future while also staying actively involved in our communities. It gives us a structured place to grow, explore our goals, and connect with people who share the same drive to succeed. What makes SHIFT so special is that it doesn't just serve one kind of student. It's designed to support all high schoolers, no matter what their background or starting point may be. Whether you're working toward college, unsure of your next steps, or just looking for a supportive environment, SHIFT creates opportunities that meet you where you are and helps you go even further. I've had the chance to witness the impact of the SHIFT Fellowship not only in my own life, but in the lives of my peers. From resume workshops, college research to meaningful team-building activities, every part of the program is intentional and empowering. It equips us with real-world tools and skills, all while reminding us that we have the power to uplift others along the way. SHIFT is more than just a program, it's a community, starting point and a reminder that our futures are all bright and full of possibility. I'm incredibly grateful to be a part of something that believes in all students, supports our growth, and helps us rise up together. That's why programs like SHIFT are so important and why they need continued funding. When we invest in youth, we are not just supporting individual success stories. We are building stronger communities, better schools, and brighter futures for everyone. I would like to invite all board members to actively participate in SHIFT programs this summer. I also urge our district to strengthen partnership with SHIFT and connect with its programs to fully engage with and benefit from these valuable opportunities. With the right resources, programs like SHIFT can continue to change lives.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. My name is Matt Meyer, and I teach 4th grade at Denver Green School Southeast, where I'm our D68 rep. I'm here tonight to say that I support the proposed EL-19, and I hope the Board votes to approve it. However, I also want to say that this is a missed opportunity to address unreasonable class sizes. I analyzed the elementary homeroom data on class sizes to share the impact of our current policy with you. There are 142 elementary classrooms with more than 30 students. Over 2/3 of those are clustered at only 17 schools. Of those 17 schools, 15 serve more than 60% students of color. I'll come back to the 2 that don't in a moment. This pattern shows that district policy has successfully prevented unreasonable class sizes at schools that serve white communities. We know that district leadership has rightly made powerful statements defending on newly arrived students. However, when you look at the 17 schools, you will find most of the elementary schools that are serving large numbers of newly arrived students: DGS, Valdez, Michelone, Ashley, and Alice. So while leadership is saying the right things, they're actually trying to place newly arrived students in overcrowded schools lacking the resources to adequately support them. This has an impact on academics. At those 17 schools, the median of points scored on the SPF is 10 percentage points lower than other DPS schools. Let's come back to one of the schools on the list that serves mostly white students, Teller. If you look at the data, you will see that their large class sizes are all in upper elementary. That's because the current policy framework allows Teller, like many other schools, to reduce their choice offerings, protecting small classes for their affluent neighborhood, a choice not available to schools serving mostly students of color. This may seem like a complex policy issue, but it only appears that way because the impact of our current policy in CAP is to prioritize low class sizes at predominantly white schools. Most of the 17 schools are located near schools with small and medium class sizes, often in more affluent neighborhoods. At DGS, the negative impact of unreasonable class size that you have seen could have been solved by one bus driving 1 mile. However, that will not happen because the lead negotiator shared on April 9th, the district leadership does not see class size as a problem and they are comfortable with the current cap of 35. I hope that you all find that you will take action on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Lefkowitz. I'm a parent of DPS alumni and a grandparent of 3 current DPS students. I'm a co-founder of Park Hill Neighbors for Equity in Education. Since 2017, we have worked to improve equity among the Park Hill elementary schools. We're very grateful that you have resurrected EL-19 on school boundaries. Because boundaries have not changed meaningfully since 1996, many school boundaries do not correlate with school capacity, are highly segregated, and contribute to gentrification of historic neighborhoods. As you know, we have been advocating a review of boundaries for a long time, In addition, the new Raza report asked for a look at boundaries, and West High School students recently asked the board to look at their boundaries. We commend you for being responsive to this public input. We would like to suggest some modifications to the proposal. We're pleased to see that the most recent version of the policy reduces the review process from every 10 years to every 5. We would go further and suggest that part of the strategic regional analysis every year should include a look at boundaries as well. We suggest this proposal be connected to the school closure policy, and a look at school boundaries should be a first step. For example, in the Park Hill neighborhood, Park Hill Elementary has a boundary that exceeds its capacity by at least 200 students. Howlett, less than 2 miles away, has no boundary. EL 19 lays out several criteria to use determining how boundaries should be withdrawn. We think redrawn. We think and sometimes they may be in conflict with one another. A goal of decreasing segregation should be the primary driver of boundary revisions, as was called for in the resolution for strengthening neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for listening to me today. My name is Margaret Skier, and my daughter Genevieve will be entering kindergarten at Denver Green School this fall, and I'm excited to talk to you about EL 19 today. I am excited for her to start her school experience in a diverse, integrated setting. However, I am very concerned about the number of students in her class. 35 students in one classroom is too many. Allowing this many students in one class goes against every aspect of putting students first. Quite simply, it is harder for all students to achieve when there are so many students in a room. They have fewer opportunities to participate in class, ask questions, engage in class discussions, and receive individual feedback. The student-teacher relationship suffers. These are all essential elements for children to feel motivated to learn. I want nothing but the best for my child, and the reality that these aspects of her education will suffer due to high class size is extremely discouraging and concerning. However, above all else, my highest priority is my child's safety. Having 35 children in one class is not safe, and I would call it irresponsible. There is no way a teacher can have their eyes on this many children. Students come to DPS with a wide range of needs, many of them requiring high levels of adult care. Allowing so many children in one classroom puts them in a vulnerable situation. Whether it's in a classroom or at recess, supervision is greatly compromised the more students you have. Additionally, it makes it harder to keep children safe in the event of an emergency, such as a fire or a school shooting. Tragically, this is something that needs to be in the forefront of our minds. As responsible adults, we need to ensure we're doing everything possible to create secure schools. Students deserve to be safe in DPS schools. No learning can happen if they don't. I know that the district bargaining team said that they're comfortable with kindergarten classes of 35. Therefore, I ask the board to revise EL 19 to lower the class cap before my students start school in the fall. If you do not think that's appropriate, then I ask you to make it clear to the superintendent that you expect him to bargain in good faith to solve the class size problem.
Thank you. Our next round of speakers, the Honorable Ayante M. Anderson, Luis Torres, Francis Natividad Coleman, Darlene Ledoux. I'm sorry, it wasn't on here, I missed that. The Honorable Francis Natividad Coleman, Darlene Ledoux, and Kalinas Newsom.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. Today, you all will be debating about the superintendent's contract. And let me just go ahead and say the quiet part out loud. This is about an election. It is about an election when you have individuals that want this contract to fail so they can use the superintendent as a punching bag in the upcoming election. They want to be able to spend millions of dollars utilizing an Afro-Latino male to fearmonger Denver families to vote in their own, their direction. It's unacceptable because the speakers that you will hear tonight will include those who aren't going to talk about data. They're not going to talk about the progress that we've made as a district. Instead, they want to talk about their feelings were hurt, that they no longer have the keys to this district. And let me tell you, unfortunately, feelings cannot drive the district's progress that we've seen under Superintendent Marrero's leadership. The data shows we are headed in the right direction. We need a leader that's willing to stand up to the current administration in the White House. We don't need a leadership transition. We We just talked about a budget and what is at stake. If we lose federal funding, the individuals that you'll hear tonight want to waste taxpayer dollars to put us through another superintendent search. That's not being fiscally responsible. We need our school board to extend the contract of Dr. Alex Marrero. He's not perfect. I've disagreed with him both as an educator and as a school board member. I voted against his contract extension and his evaluation, and I voted against making sure that he had a performance bonus. Dr. Marrero and I have had many clashes, but I believe our students deserve a leader that is going to stand up and fight for them in the face of Donald Trump's bullshit. So we need to be able to roll up our sleeves and fight for our students. Support Dr. Marrero's contract extension.
Good evening. Incidentally, I have mailed these following comments to the board. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak on behalf of the contract extension for Superintendent Dr. Alex Marrero.
Could you make sure you say your name and the title of your remarks, please? Thank you.
My name is Luis Dorgas, who was the next, resident of Denver and committed to DPS. I strongly support this extension for significant reasons. I have written in the bilingual Denver newspaper, El Semanario, the weekly issue, commending DPS and Dr. Marrero for the remarkable efforts to serve the more than 4,000 recent student arrivals over the last 2 years into DPS from other countries. Despite great challenges, the school board, Dr. Marrero, as superintendent, and the entire structure of DPS welcomed these children in enrolling, guided them on their path to equitable education, and provided essential services, including, as we just heard, meals for the students. I have said in several community and academic gatherings that this effort has been the single most significant educational and civil rights achievement in Colorado in perhaps the last decade, and Dr. Marrero's contributions were essential. Among other accomplishments, Dr. Marrero's support for and direction of the recently released La Raza report has been very significant in advancing education for all students, including but not limited to Latino students. I was one of the researchers for the La Raza report, so I am intimately familiar with the recent advances for the Latino community and for all of DPS. Among numerous other efforts, this includes growth in the curriculum, especially texts and classes covering the history, culture, and contributions of Latinos and other marginalized groups. So for these and other reasons, and again, I emailed these to you, I strongly recommend that the DPS School Board demonstrate our appreciation for his leadership with the contract extension. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Fran. Natividad Coleman Francis also. Appreciate you all here. I'm here to implore you to please renew Superintendent Alex Marrero's contract by extending it. There are those that want to delay this decision, saying, why not allow the new board that frankly hasn't even been elected to make this decision when you haven't the slightest clue of all the good work that has been accomplished by our present DPS superintendent. As a former elected, I never expected my successor to clean up the work I should have finished. Respectfully, you all are elected, and part of your work is to seize the day and get as much accomplished. And the task at hand is taking into consideration Dr. Marrero's contract as superintendent and extending it because you all have worked with him on a myriad of issues, especially increasing graduation rates and improving literacy. These important issues, you know firsthand that Dr. Marrero has rolled up his sleeves to accomplish them and improve them. This is reason enough to extend his contract. I thank you and I implore you to please extend his contract.
Thank you. Good evening, my name is Darlene Ledoux. As a lifelong educator, grandparent, and
of a student, the granddaughter of Pasquale Du Academy, a school named after my dear brother, I stand before you demonstrating my full support for Dr. Alex Marrero because I've witnessed his leadership in action. Over the years, I worked alongside many superintendents. Each with their own leadership style and agenda. Tonight I'm here to tell you Dr. Alex Marrero is exceptional. He leads with courage, clarity, and heart. You know his record. You've seen the impact. He championed the La Raza report, the only report like this in any school district in the nation. He took bold legal steps to protect our multilingual learners and immigrant families so students can learn in our schools without fear or harassment. After the heartbreaking loss of our colleague and dear sister, Dr. Sharon Bailey, Dr. Marrero didn't let her vision fade. He ensured the Ombuds Office launched with integrity and purpose, honoring her legacy by providing Ombuds support to all DPS employees. You have formally evaluated his leadership this school year on October 28, 2024. This board reviewed his performance, and based on your own clearly defined expectations, he met the majority of the metrics and is making steady progress in others. Dr. Marrero is a rarity as a superintendent, Afro-Latino, bilingual, award-winning. He deserves a fair opportunity to lead. You will continue to hear statistics, opinions, passionate voices, some in support, some in opposition. That's democracy. Leadership isn't about perfection, it's about purpose, integrity, and the ability to respond to a community's evolving needs with wisdom and courage. Dr. Marrero is that kind of leader. At this time like this, when our district faces deep challenges, you heard about the headwinds coming. You know about that. We're living them now. We can't afford another shakeup with a new superintendent. We need to maintain steady, values-driven leadership. So I ask you, please don't let politics outweigh progress. Don't let division precede the needs of our children, families, and educators. Stand with leadership that's brought us this far and take us further. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Colleen Susan. If you go to extend Alex Marrero's contract, you're telling us that leadership doesn't require courage, presence, or accountability. This isn't about performance, it's about character and having moral clarity to lead. Let me tell you what I learned. On March 22nd of 23, I walked into Denver Health Hospital 45 minutes after getting the call that my brother and his colleague had been shot at East High School. Two questions echoed in my mind. Were they alive or were they dead? When the surgeon looked at me, tears in her eyes, he was very lucky. I sighed, I cried, and then I looked around for him. The one person whose presence would have meant something, it would have communicated the seriousness of the situation. The person in charge, Superintendent Alex Marrero, he wasn't there, and I had to ask. No one could tell me where he was, and I looked at the two DPS staff members who were present, and I said he has 15 minutes. This wasn't the first time I had to address his behavior. Months earlier, a staff member called me and said I can't work for him. He barked orders at me in front of the kids. It was chaotic. Why would he do that? And I told him, we don't work for Alex, we work for the kids. Because even then I knew who does something like that. And now we want to reward him. Let's be clear. 2 staff members were shot trying to stop a student Marrero cleared to be in that building. That decision, that failure, cost 2 people everything. This was a student, he wasn't a file, he wasn't a pet dog, he was so much child that we failed. Academic outcomes are hard to improve for any leader. That's the systemic part of education, I agree with that. You get a pass. But what I'm speaking to tonight is the moral part. Because if Marrero can't show up in the darkest hour, why should we trust him to lead in the light? Graduation rates are easy, optics are easy, showing up when people are bleeding, that's the job and he didn't do it. You are not neutral, you're responsible. Thank you.
Our next 5 speakers are Lynn Lee, Cecilia Benavides, Selena Benavides, Cecilia Garcia, Virginia Castro. Thank you.
My name is Lynn. I'm speaking tonight as a DPS parent, a taxpayer, and one of the co-founders of Resign DPS. I spoke at the April public comment. It is a disgrace. I'm here again, speaking out on the same subject. Let's be clear, this last-minute move to amend the superintendent's contract without public disclosure, without evaluation results, and without a single real opportunity for community input is disgraceful. You should be ashamed. You were elected to represent the public, not to bypass it, and yet you're rushing to walk
yourself in a major leadership decision behind closed doors with barely 3 days' notice. The superintendent contract doesn't expire until 2026. You have time, so why the urgency? Why the secrecy? This isn't about process, it's about trust. And right now this board has lost public trust. If you want buy-in on the district's future and regain community trust, this is not a way to get it. If you truly believe this extension is deserved, then show us the evidence. Make the case in public. And tell them, don't expect the community to quietly sit back while decisions are made in the dark. Be prepared. If you vote to extend this contract in a way that serves and ranks Democrats' principles of transparency and accountability, there will be strong public responses. People are paying attention. Over 800 have signed a petition that has been circulating online against the extension, and that number is growing. We are organized and we are prepared to educate Denver voters in November. Resigning as 2.0 members will help finish cleaning the board is functioning in November. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Selena Benavides, and I'm a former state representative and also a DPS graduate of South High School. I served in the legislature in the mid-90s, served on House Education, and also have been a functioning Human Resource Division Director for over 20 years, and have been involved in senior executive contracting, which many people in the press and all the stuff that's been written is not unusual to be in a private conversations with those individuals who actually execute those contracts. But I would like to let you know that I'm here to communicate the importance of extending a contract and how that is very reasonable, and my support for Marero, and how every single event that I have seen him at recently at the Latino Cultural Arts Center, which we are opening right there on 12th and Umatilla, right under the viaduct, where others would not have done, and other superintendents would not have been in a neighborhood that bridges the West Side, Sun Valley, and Westwood together. He was there. And it is very unusual for that to happen. Other superintendents were there, as well as school board members. Tonight, it is important and reasonable to have the discussion and reasonable to extend a contract. The idea that there is a lot of effort to do the opposite has to do with public schools versus private schools versus choice, and I was there when all of that happened in the mid-90s in the legislature, but here we are today, and we want leadership, and we want people that support our children, and he does. And so I appreciate your support for my My name is Cecilia Garcia, and I am a member of the Latino Education Coalition. I have lived in Denver all of my life and also attended Denver Public Schools. I have always been interested in the support of public schools. I chose to stay and live here in Denver, bring my dollars, invest in Denver, bring my vote, bring my commitment, bring in my volunteerism. And I'm asking tonight to please support and continue the contract for the superintendent. I believe in all the leadership of all of you, but most important, the citizenry of Denver did the most difficult thing, and they passed a DPS bond. If that's not a message in support of your leadership and of you as superintendent, I don't know what else is. I have been on many campaigns, and the problem is always the vote. And we voted for your leadership and his leadership with our money. So what more can we say in support of what you all and what he is doing above bond initiative is not easy. Even Denver, City and County of Denver fails at it. But we pulled together and we said the one message, we support public education, Denver public schools. We want everyone to exceed in our public schools. And it's obvious this has become political and has become about greed. There are individuals that are invested in this against the public schools for dollars and power. But we who have lived here all of our lives, thank you for your support.
Hello again. My name is Virginia Castro. First, I want to thank you, Dr. Moreto, and the board for coming to Richard T. Castro Elementary School multiple times to listen to the heartfelt pleas and opinions of students, parents, staff, and community regarding the closing of our school. I believe it helped ease the pain to know the reason not enough students to pay for all it takes to run a school and the causes of why. I retired after 27 years in DPS social worker. The last 11 as supervisor of the department. We had at least 55 master social workers covering 110 schools every school year. In those 27 years, I served under at least 5 superintendents and their boards. I started my job in 1974, the first year of the mandatory busing. I am sure some of you remember the upheaval this caused in the city and our schools. And of course, there were always serious upheavals through the years. Yet, I do not remember any major mobilization on the part of those administrators to help us alleviate the serious daily challenges when they occurred. During the desegregation, I do remember school staffs becoming very creative and integrating their students from scratch. The administrators didn't help much, but they didn't hinder much either. You've been a very refreshing team. You have had to make some extremely difficult decisions for our times. I know you paid the same attention to the rest of the closing schools as you did Castro. Again, a very special thank you to you, Dr. Moreto, and we want you to stay with us for a long time.
Thank you. Our next 5 speakers are Jeremy Harris, Cody Austinson, Anita Banuelos, Dina Puente, and Denisha Chavez.
Good evening, board. My name is Jeremy Harris. I'm a parent and candidate for the school board in District 4. I am here to express concern over the proposed early removal of the superintendent, Dr. Alex Marrero's contract. A contract that isn't set to expire until June of 2026. I appreciate some of the efforts made by the superintendent, but the decision to renew his contract early is a premature decision, especially with upcoming board elections that could change the district's leadership dynamics. Rushing this process undermines community trust because it's pushing a decision through before the public can weigh in. We deserve a transparent process where everyone can see how and why decisions are made about our school's leadership. A decision of this magnitude should not be made without a thorough public review of measurable students' outcomes and transparency about contract terms and performance benchmarks. If the data shows improvement, share it. Let the community see it, but don't rush this decision behind closed doors. DPS belongs to all of us, parents, educators, taxpayers, and most of all, our students. Please delay any action on the contract until the public has had an opportunity to engage, ask questions, and see clear data on academic progress, especially for students who have historically been underserved in Denver public schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
showing up tonight. Your presence shows that the community deserves a voice in decisions made at this very table. My name is Kobe, my pronouns are he, him, and I serve Denver Public Schools as a middle school teacher and on the Family and Community Engagement team under Superintendent Cordova. I left the classroom to organize in the community for the public education all of our students deserve. I'm proud to do that work as the Director of External Affairs at Denver Families for Public Schools. Part of my job is to watch every board meeting, digest what happens, connect the dots, and help community understand what's happening so that they can take action and make their voices heard. That is why I'm here tonight, to speak to our audience watching so that you know what's up, why it matters, and how your voice should be centered in these decisions. In March, the board entered executive session to discuss the superintendent's contract. Until then, there had been no public indication that serious contract discussions were underway. This move was surprising for several reasons. First, his contract is not set to expire until June 2026. That's more than a year from now. The only real deadline is January 1st, 2026, when the board must notify the superintendent of its intent to renew or non-renew. That is 8 months from today. So why now? Why make this critical decision without engaging or informing the community? Last month's public comment failed. So did tonight's. There are countless community members who fell below the line tonight and consequently will be silenced by your refusal to stop, to slow down, to listen. We may also hear in the discussion tonight that the board has full confidence in the superintendent's performance, but that doesn't explain why we're bypassing his October evaluation, his first, which the board unanimously approved. So what's the
Superintendent contract. Good evening, President Dr. Olson and members of the DPS Board and Superintendent Dr. Moreno. My name is Anita Banderas, a proud Denver Public School graduate from West High School. A Southwest Denver resident, I'm the Director of Community Organizing with Transform Education Now. We work to ensure that every child has access to world-class education. While I appreciate Dr. Morero's efforts in family engagement, particularly with the Latino La Raza report safely of our Latino, Chicano, Mexicano community, yet there is still much more work to be done to improve the outcomes of not only our Latino, Chicano, Mexicano students, but for all Denver Public School students. Current results from the National Assessments of Educational Progress shows we clearly have a lot of work left. Additionally, just this year in January, the board created a new evaluation process and goals for superintendent. I'm confused that the board is having these discussions now. We have until January 2026 for a performance evaluation to see if he meets his goals. I'm asking respectfully of the board to be transparent and to communicate to the community. Given the district's commitment to family, school, district partnerships, rushing this decision without community review and discussion lacks transparency and fairness. Our students deserve a thoughtful and transparent process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Wilson and members of DPS Board of Education and Superintendent Dr. Marrero. My name is Dina Puente. I'm a community organizer with Transform Education Now. I work closely with families here in the Denver metro area and its surrounding communities. Our mission is to ensure that every child has access to a world-class education. Last year, I attended several of the community sessions which Dr. Marrero was a part of and witnessed his effort in trying to engage with community in regards to school closures with DPS. He made it seem that community input was important during that process and yet chose not to answer any questions from parents in the community. It's my understanding that community is very important to Dr. Marrero, but that is not how you demonstrate that you are here to work with community. Currently, less than 25% of Latino students across DPS are meeting grade level goals in math and reading, while the district as a whole has made some progress to return to academic success pre-COVID. That success does not include our Black and Latino students. The superintendent is our district leader, and it is his job to set ambitious goals and work with everyone in DPS to make those goals a reality. We owe it to our kids to make sure that we are on track to meet those goals. That is why I'm here today, to urge the board to pause on the superintendent contract renewal. The current contract is set to expire in June 2026. Notification of his contract is not due until January 2026. Community input on his performance is very important to his contract extension. Most importantly, we owe it to kids and the community to make sure that our senior leader is driving towards meaningful gains for all kids, but especially for Latino students. DPS should be embracing parents' values and take into consideration parent opinions when it comes to great leadership for their schools. I urge each of you to put a pause on this decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Janisha Chavez. Good evening, members of the DPS Board of Education. I am a parent leader in Transformation Education now. As a mother of 2 young boys with my eldest being in school now, my husband and I are deeply invested in ensuring all children receive the highest quality of education. Therefore, I am concerned about the current discussion surrounding the superintendent's contract. As a parent, the implications of this discussion are unclear. Will it involve an increase in salary or bonuses? Does it suggest a contract extension sooner than the typical renewal process? My primary focus is on the quality of education our students receive, and I want to ensure that resources are directed to our classrooms, not necessarily to an augmented superintendent compensation package. Currently, Latino and Black students across the district continue to be left behind without significant progress made toward their grade level goals. Progress for our students must be a key focus and factor of any contract conversions and should be a major component of the superintendent's evaluation. This evening, I respectfully ask that the board be transparent in this process to actively listen to the concerns of families throughout Denver and to guarantee full transparency regarding the superintendent's contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next 5 speakers are Stephen Feinsilver, Josephina Lanti, Olivia Uzi, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, and Clay Cherry and Ventral Davis. Thank you.
I'm Coach Steve Feinsilver back in Royal. It's good to see you. Last time I was here, you weren't present.
Just make sure you speak right into that mic so we can hear you. Thank you.
Again, it's good to be here. Last time you were not present, Dr. Moore. Many people have gathered, many people are concerned, many people are watching very carefully. I have been asked to speak because indeed, this is my family. I have my own family of children, 7, but I have a bigger family, which goes 3 generations deep, and I'm proud to be here and to speak for them. I ask that the vote to extend Dr. Morero's contract be paused and stopped at this point. There are democratic institutions throughout our country that are crumbling, and I do not want this to be one of them. And we could head in that direction, and I hope not. Our schools are not safe. The Denver voters are dissatisfied. If you move forward, there likely could be legal and governmental inquiries. That's what I have been told. I didn't seek that information. They have told me that. The financial, emotional, and moral supporters in our district who have donated money and time are very concerned, and they're talking about withholding their support. The staff and morale that we currently see is at an all-time low. Mr. Esserman, I know many in your circle that are concerned. They want you to be more transparent. Mr. Youngquist, Ms. Quattlebaum, you have had or currently have children in our district, and they have flourished, but not every child is, and they should. And Dr. Olson, you have been a great listener and a friend to many, but you can either contribute to the helplessness or give us enthusiasm and optimism. Please do the right thing. Hear our voice.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Monroe and DPS board members. My name is Josephina Lamte. I am a senior at Northwood High School, and next year I'll be attending DU on a full ride scholarship. Draining. This is how I describe the high school journey, and I have found that I worked this journey alone. I needed my community to help me with this journey, which includes
after-school programs like Gorilla, Shift, basketball, track, and my Bible study group. They helped me become the strong, resilient person I am now. Without these programs, high school would have been impossible to go through. They helped me to push in better moments when I couldn't help but crawl to see the light. Surprisingly, every student does not have this type of opportunity. This is why it's important for DPS to invest in after-school programs in every school and partner with organizations like SHIP. It will give students like me the opportunity to find their place in the world and have the support they need. On the other hand, this school has been very challenging because I took on some difficult classes as a minority diploma student, which is why I rather find 30. It gives me the chance to talk to my teachers about the topics I'm struggling with. I am grateful for the challenge, achievements, experiences, and knowledge I've learned from this school year. I am also thankful for the smart, extroverted, resilient person I am now. However, I wish I had more discipline and more time management skills. It would have made my year with less tears and stress. I don't think the school has a responsibility to teach students the skills. These are the types of skills students learn on their own and strengthen on their own. However, I will cherish the lessons I have learned from the school year. Shift has been a safe space for me. It allows me to be myself and gives me the break I need from stress and life. I urge you DPS board members to attend the meetings and notice the changes we're making on our youth. This will be more to invest in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent and DPS board members. My name is Olivia Rosenberg and I'm a high school senior at DSST Elevate Northeast High School, and I'm a soon-to-be graduate going to CSU for Collins with the Florida Scholarship. Partnering with outside organizations like SHIP. But programs like SHIP offer students opportunities like a shelter, career advice, and college advice that would otherwise be unavailable to them, and I want to share how SHIP helped me see things not just within the classrooms, but the entire school itself. It gave me a chance to see the bigger picture outside of high school and understand how decisions and policies are made within the school system and have a voice in that process. I met influential people through SHIP who hold positions of power in our community, making good decisions about what's in our class, schools, and future, and I didn't just meet them for no reason. I got to ask real questions. I disagreed with them when I spoke about what students are concerned about and was at the table when plans and promises were made to address problems in schools and communities. That's not something most students can say they've ever done, and it made me realize the impact this program has and why it's so important for our district to continue these programs. Programs like SHIP are important because they open doors, give students a voice, and they can shape the future rather than just waiting for it to happen to them. Denver schools have a responsibility to its core values of putting the student first. As I graduate today, I ask you to partner with programs like SHIP so more DPS students can get this opportunity during their high school years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Mario and Board. My name is Clay Charity, and I'm a senior at DSST Elevate, and I will soon be a student at D with the Forum. Even harder when you don't have two loving parents there to support you. It's harder when kids like me who have been disowned and had to grow up alone have no one in their corner when they really needed it. When I first came to SHIP, I was nervous for my future. I was struggling mentally and I was unsure of who I was or where I was going. But then I found something I didn't expect. I found people who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Faith Bridge taught me how to be more kind to myself. They taught me to not only advocate for myself, but to stand my ground and show the world exactly who I am without fear or apology. With the help of Vernon, Maya, and Mrs. Galante, I learned how to be an adult. I learned how to navigate life, not just the big, overwhelming things, but the little things too. Like how to believe in myself when it's hard. We went to DC and I learned how our government works. I learned how to make connections that will get me through college and one day beyond. And this past summer, I got the chance to lead 9 other teenagers, all from different backgrounds and life experiences. I didn't know them at first, but I had to manage them, learn how to communicate and give them expectations, and handle tough conversations when people's jobs were on the line. I learned responsibility. Not only that, I learned flexibility, and I learned how to give myself grace when I mess up, because that's a part of growth too. But even more than that, I got to experience what it feels like to have loving adults there to support you. Even when they're not your biological family, adults who tell you happy birthday, who care about your accomplishments and are still there on your bad day. The adults who took me in that shift my sophomore year. The adults who were there to bandage my wounds when I was at the lowest point in my life this year. That's why I'm speaking to you today, not just to share my story, but to remind you how critical it is to keep programs like Shift alive. For students like me, these programs are extras, they're essentials. They offer stability, guidance, and love where there may not be none. And there are many other students still waiting for their chance. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. My name is Michelle Davis, and I go to D Assistant Element. Community, a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. When we hear the word community, we often think of a group of people living in the same area, but it's much more than that. Community is a feeling of fellowship, a sense of connection that comes from sharing common values, goals, and experiences. It's about belonging and feeling like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. When we build community, we create a space where people feel seen, heard, and valued. We turn strangers into neighbors and neighbors into friends. SHIFT is a special program that allows students to prepare for life. It's a program that doesn't just teach skills, it builds confidence. It doesn't just offer opportunities, it opens doors. Through SHIFT, students are discovering their strengths, developing new talents, and stepping into their potential with pride. But what makes SHIFT truly powerful is how it brings people together. It connects youth with mentors, with peers, and with real-world experiences that help them grow, not just professionally, but personally. It shows them that they are not alone, that there's a network of people who believe in them no matter what to see them succeed. SHIFT invests in the youth, helping to shape a stronger, more skilled, and more connected generation. One that's not only ready to enter the real world, but ready to lead it. So to everyone who's been part of SHIFT, thank you. You're not just building careers, you're building community. I am here today to encourage board members who do not know about SHIFT to come to one of our summer days and get immersed in our SHIMMER program. I also want to push the District of Denver Public Schools to continue to invest in your programs like SHIFT so they can continue to grow and more students can see the benefits. Thank you.
Our next five speakers are Alexis Monaco-Harrigan, Ronnie Garcia, Catherine Grimm, Kay Taviana, and I'm sure I'm saying your name correctly, please help me, and Judy Viliar.
Good evening, board members, President Olson. Hello. My name is Alexis Monaco-Harrigan, and I'm a member of Educate Denver, a coalition of civic leaders committed to supporting DPS students. This month, you'll vote on Executive Limitation 20, a policy that will shape how DPS makes decisions about school facilities. These decisions matter deeply. School buildings are community assets worth millions, and where and how they're used impact students, neighborhoods, and our pursuit of equity. Historically, the board has held this authority, but under policy governance that has shifted. Superintendent Madero currently holds near unilateral control over facility use. We do not support that level of authority in the hands of any single individual. We appreciate the board's efforts to reassert oversight through EL 20, and we believe the draft is moving in the right direction, but it must go further. First, the policy should require authentic community engagement. Families deserve a real voice in decisions that affect their children's education. Nothing about us without us. Second, the board must retain final authority over school and program placement. The superintendent can recommend, but you are accountable to the public and must make the final call. Third, EL 20 should treat all public schools, district-run and charter, equitably. The key question should be, is this school helping students thrive? Finally, I want to echo those who remind us what's at stake when community voice is excluded. Whether it's about school facility decisions or the superintendent contract, the principle is the same. If decisions are made without us, without hearing from us, that's not leadership, that's a disservice to the families you represent. On behalf of 850 community members and counting, don't amend this contract without community members' transparency and accountability.
So sorry, you're talking on the L20. Thank you. Next speaker.
Well, gear change. Good evening. My name is Ronnie Garcia. I serve as the senior minister at Denver Presbyterian Church. I'm also a proud parent of 4 DPS students that either attended or graduated or at East High School. Also a little bit of a flex. I'm also a member of EFAF, which gives, educational grants to teachers and students. So I like DPS. I'm here tonight to ask you for your partnership as we explore the lease of Watley Chapel. And this isn't about a building for us, it's about investing in a shared future that benefits not only our congregation, but also the greater Denver community and DPS itself. Understandably and wisely, Watley was left off of the bond this past November, as it's a very expensive church building that's not exactly a multi-use or multi-purpose building, but it is perfect for us. Denver Historic Society and the wonderful humans there had their eyes on this building, and they have given us even their full support to restore it and use it. Denver Pres has always met at DPS buildings under the community use agreement, and we've always sought to be more than just tenants. We've sought the flourishing of school staff and students in practical and meaningful ways, and those relationships are really near and dear. So Watley offers us the opportunity to establish a permanent home by making a very significant investment, probably about $5 million, to restore this otherwise condemned cathedral, which has been empty for 17 years, and turn it into a thriving and beautiful space. And of course, you will find in Denver Pres cheerful, generous tenants. The space will be made available to DPS for recitals and graduations, adding significant value to the Mosaic campus. So we're ready to act, we're ready to invest, absorb the risk. We want to keep families in Denver. We're happy babies, our birth rates are stable, and we think that's great for the city. Thank you.
My name is Kate Grimm, and my son is a student at Palmer Elementary, and I want to provide some feedback about the school closing process. When you voted in November to close Palmer and other schools, I trusted that there was a plan incorporating the lessons from 2 years ago, with dedicated DPS staff who were prepared 100% to support us on next steps. The reality has been messy, inefficient, and frustrating. I want to detail some of the lessons learned from this painful go-around so next time they can be avoided. We need consistent communication with regular updates provided through multiple channels so families that aren't tech-savvy still have access. We need a boots-on-the-ground presence with a single point person who can triage our needs and questions, not a web form to submit questions to, not an FAQ that people can't find. We need DPS departments to rise out of their silos and coordinate together so parents don't need to individually take on the burden of researching things like school tours, bell times, transportation, and after-school care availability. We need to provide paid time to teachers affected by closing while they search for jobs so they aren't up until midnight prepping for an interview while also trying to lesson plan for the next day. We need mental health to follow students into the welcoming schools next year to ensure that they're truly supported. When these things don't happen, or if they're not fully accessible to all the families, it's really hard to feel like every learner thrives. As part of your discussion in November, this board made a lot of promises about accountability. So I ask you for this accountability to make sure that there is a documented, robust plan in place before any future closures happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, board. My name is Kate Avioma. I'm with Colorado Dream Foundation, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you all. So I'm honored to represent the Out of Screen Time Coalition. We're a group of 12 programs deeply committed to the success and well-being of DPS students.
The comp is short for comprehensive. This distinction is critical, as it ensures and means that we serve youth nearly every day, resulting in high levels of contact that ensures consistency, deep relationships, and proven impact. For decades, we have partnered with the Denver community and area schools to provide daily, after-school, and summer programs that serve as a vital wraparound service for our students. The work we do isn't just about keeping kids busy after school or during the summer. It's about creating a safe, supportive space where young people thrive. Research consistently shows that participation in high-quality, out-of-school time program leads to increased school engagement, improved attendance, and enhanced academic outcomes. Our programs are proven to help students build strong, positive relationships with mentors and tutors, all while fostering a sense of belonging and community. These are relationships that extend beyond the classroom, supporting not just their academic growth, but their social-emotional development as well. Most importantly, we are already an integral part of DPS schools, providing a program that complements the work you do in the classrooms every day. But we want to do more. So this summer, we're extending an invitation to come see our programs, to meet our kids and our staff. And we also invite you to attend a Comp Coalition meeting. So be on the lookout for invites. You're coming to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julie Lear. I'm here to speak on behalf of my son, a student at Northfield High School, who has documented dyslexia and dyspraxia since second grade across 4 different school districts in 3 different states. Since November, I've been requesting a language waiver for him based on an independent evaluation.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we cannot allow you to speak about your student-specific situation.
I'd like to respond to the fact that numerous times I have requested help from Northfield High School, however, Northfield hasn't.
I'm sorry, this is just for a minute while I confer with our general counsel.